Good afternoon, Locarno. Good afternoon, Locarno. And welcome to a film that we in Locarno love madly. I'm not going to use many words. The film is Trading Places. It's one of the best comedies ever to come out of America. And the man who made it is John Landis. Please join us on stage.
Grazie. This script is by Tim, I've forgotten already. Oh, Tim Hunter and, it's too hot. That's so scary. I've totally well, anyway, two guys. They wrote this screenplay for a producer for the actors Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. And Richard, who's a genius, set himself on fire. And so it was canceled. And then Paramount had a movie called 48 Hours that Walter Hill directed with thank you, and Eddie Murphy. And I think Eddie was 19. And they previewed it. And the audience reaction to Eddie was sensational. So Jeff Katzenberg called me and said, I have a script called Black and White by Tim Harris, there you go, and Herschel Weingrod. Thank you. Did you ever see the 39 Steps? Yes. I just thought of who wrote Trading Places? Like that. Anyway, so Tim Harris and Herschel Weingrod wrote a script called Black and White for Gene and Richard. Richard set himself on fire and it was canceled.
True story. He told that himself.
Oh yeah, it's a tragic story.
It became a routine.
Well, not a routine, but he
one of his routine in his show.
He did talk about it, yes. Anyway, they sent it to me, Jeff Katzenberg, and said, what do you think of Eddie Murphy for this role? And I said, who? And I never watched Saturday Night Live because it was on very late at night on Saturday. And if I was up, I wasn't home. So for almost 3 years, every Sunday morning, I'd get a call from John Belushi. And he would say, did you watch it? And I would say, I'm sorry, John. He'd say, fuck you, hang up. Anyway, so I didn't know Eddie. And they sent me some tapes, and he's obviously really gifted. And so I flew to New York and I met with him. And then we had a good time and I came back and they said, we'd like this movie in theaters in August. And I went, uh-oh, because I think it was 4 months away or something. But so I made the movie. I hated the title. Black and White. I hated the title. I said, we have to come up with a better title. And it wasn't until in post-production that the assistant editor said, what about Trading Places? And that's how we got the title. I like the screenplay very much because it's very old-fashioned. Hollywood made movies in the 30s called Screwball. And these were social realism comedies by directors like Leo McCarey and Preston Sturges and Frank Capra, George Stevens, a bunch of different men made these very particular movies. My Name Godfrey, they're like 40 of them. And what's fascinating about all of them is they're very funny, but they're all political. and they always deal with class, and they are really interesting. And when I read this script, I went, Jesus, this could be 1937. I loved this. And I made very few changes, probably the less changes to any script I ever was given, very little. And then, of course, on shooting, Danny and Eddie and I made things up. But the studio was very anxious for me to hire big stars, because 48 Hours, even though they were very excited about Eddie, hadn't come out yet. So I said, I'd like Dan Aykroyd to play Louis Winthorpe III, and they said, no, because John had died, and Danny made a movie that bombed called Dr. Detroit. So they all said, he means nothing without John Belushi. It's very much like when Martin and Lewis broke up. They all said, well, that's the end of Dean Martin. You know, they were wrong. But I said, Dan Aykroyd is a wonderful actor, and he could play this character. And they just, you know, and when I say that, I'm quite serious. If you look at Danny in this movie, and then look at him in The Blues Brothers, Elwood and Lewis have nothing in common. They're very different. And what's wonderful about Dan Aykroyd is Lewis has a stick up his ass. He is I'm trying to think of polite words, but he would have voted for Trump, let me put it that way. And what's wonderful about Dan Aykroyd's performance is he has the courage to be an asshole for almost the entire movie. And at the end of the movie, he's pretty much the same asshole. The only difference is now he's our asshole. We like him. But it's quite a brave performance. Eddie was, I think, 20 and just full of beans. And I only had him 3 days a week because he was still doing Saturday Night Live. We shot this in Philadelphia and New York. It was winter, so I just had a great cast. Denham Elliott, great actor. And then the only part of the script I did not like was a character called Ophelia, who was a complete cliche, a hooker, prostitute with the heart of gold. It's, Shirley MacLaine and Irma la Douce, and, it's hundreds of movies with this character. And in reality, it's the only kind of false note because, first of all, what street prostitute looks like Jamie Lee Curtis? And second of all, would be that generous and kind. Forget it. But I thought, well, there's no other women really. So what do I do? And I met Jamie. I made for Universal Home Video, I made this thing called Coming Soon, which was shot, I think, in one day on the tour of the Universal. And it was really just trailers, previews of Universal horror pictures. And Jamie Lee Curtis was a scream queen. She'd been in the Halloween movies and, I don't know, a whole bunch of slasher movies. And she was the hostess. And I was surprised because she was funny, she was smart, she was really attractive, beautiful, obviously. When your father's Tony Curtis and your mother's Janet Leigh, you're gonna have a good body, it's like that's what happens. She was so different than what I expected. So I said, well, what about you? She'd be great. She's smart. She projects intelligence. She's unusual. She's not classically pretty or cute, and I hired her. And the studio went nuts. Barry Diller was the head of the company. And he said, she's a B-picture actress. She's a scream queen. She's in horror movies. And I said, one, so what? And two, Too late. They were furious. You know what they did? I had 10, 11. I had an $11 million budget, and because I cast Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis against the studio's wishes, I suddenly had a $9 million budget. They punished me. But it didn't matter. My wife, Deborah Nadulman, was the costume designer and did her usual brilliant job. She had a great idea. She said, let's cut Jamie's hair. I said, what do you mean? She said, just keep cutting it, cut it. If you can shave it, shave it. I mean, get it as short as possible. So I made a deal with the hairdresser, because Jamie always had her hair long and was concerned about it. And Deborah said, but she'll look fantastic. And we were cutting her hair in Philadelphia in the trailer. And the hairdresser says, and Jamie was very nervous. And the hairdresser said, how short should I cut it? And I said, cut it till she cries. But she was horrified. And you know what's interesting? She's worn it short ever since. Because she looked so great. In any case, this was a pleasure to make. And it was successful. And I'm happy to say that John Cleese saw it and fell in love with Jamie, and she was then in A Fish Called Wanda, and she's had an amazing career. And Dan Aykroyd's still going strong, Eddie Murphy's still going. I mean, it was very successful. And I hope you enjoy it. The only other thing, I'm sorry, Elmer Bernstein's score is wonderful. It's based on a Mozart opera, and it's a great score. Anyway, thank you.
John Landis, enjoy the show and show up tonight on Piazza Grande for the award ceremony where John Landis will get the Pardo d'Onore of the 74th Locarno edition.